like this, we're redirected to this page. So watch this. Add new account, auto-generate information, sign in with Google. We're in the dashboard. We're good to go. And then coming over here, if I reload this page, we will see it right here. We have successfully authed using Google. Let's go ahead and get going here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do user authentication for any type of web app that you create / software. Let's jump in. We're going to go ahead and use this user interface that we did in lesson 1 here. I'm going to have it so when the user, I'm going to have this say sign up instead of watch series. When the user clicks this, we're going to go to a sign up page. Within that sign up page, we're going to have the ability for the user to sign up with email or alternatively Google. To do this, we're going to use Cursor AI. Then we'll be using Firebase as our backend here for authentication. Welcome back, or alternatively, welcome still if you're binge watching this. We're going to be setting up Auth today, which is actually highly requested. I've seen a ton of comments about this. No good tutorials. This is going to be a good tutorial. If you want to know how to set up everything that you see up to this point, which was hosting and app stack, check out the other episodes in this series. For now, though, we're going to set up Auth. Let's jump right in. All right, let's come to our terminal here. If you go back to your cheat sheet, remember it's going to be CD, whatever your cheat sheet directory was. Remember for any command, do the CD and then your actual directory name. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to create a whole separate branch to this directory. Git checkout -b. The purpose of this branch is going to be authentication, so we'll call this Auth. Git branch. And then we're going to do git checkout Auth. Everything we add from here on out is going to be code that is relevant to authentication. And what is amazing about this entire series is that by the end of it, I'm going to have this as completely free. All the code you'll see, you'll be able to use and paste into your own project. Sound good? How do we do Auth, Corbin? I don't know. I'm joking. We're going to do build here, and we're going to hit authentication. I'm going to go in and drag this up. And just as a side note real quick for hosting here, once you deploy to hosting, like you saw in the previous lesson, you'll see your commits here when it comes to hosting. There'll be previous releases. One very valuable thing that you should know about hosting is that if you push to hosting and you screw up tremendously, don't worry. You go to your previous commit that's maybe more stable, hit these 3 ellipses, hit roll back, and it's like within 3 seconds, 4 seconds, it'll roll back to this version. Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's go to authentication. To do authentication, this is going to require 2 major things. We're going to do a sign up page / sign in page, and then we're going to build out a actual function for it to run so the user's information gets pushed. And then on top of that, we're going to take all that relevant information of that user and save it to our Firestore database so we can start doing queries that are specific to that user. Don't worry, AI will help us out, and I'll be here. Let's do it. I just realized like everything I just sounded right there sounded super nerdy. Am I a nerd? Okay, let's get going. Get started. Once we're here, we're going to have the ability to choose a bunch of different options. For this tutorial, you'll be able to understand how to do email and Google, but basically the skills you learn now, you're going to be able to easily apply to the other ones, such as GitHub or Facebook, or I don't know why you would do Facebook. If you plan on having Facebook as a login for your application, let me know what you're building. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with Google. Actually, let's start with email. For email, we're going to hit enable here, and we're going to do enable here. And the reason we're doing this is that we are going to create an authentication process that is a passwordless sign-in. E.g., when the user signs up for our account, they only provide their email, and then they log in by getting an email from us that's like the login link. Why do we do this, Corbin? Because of the fact that at least how Firebase Auth currently works, they don't really have good structuring and security around spam emails. E.g., someone goes to your site, puts in like 10 different emails and 10 different passwords for those emails. Those could all be fake accounts. Using this method, though, where it's an email link, the account won't actually be created until that link is pressed. Therefore, we circumnavigate spam. Sound good? Or unless we're cooking with spam. Hot skillet, want a crispy, get some Tabasco sauce, black coffee, save. I have too much fun with this, y'all. Add new provider, we're going to do Google. Why are we doing Google, Corbin? Because it's Google. Let's go ahead and hit enable here. I might blur that out, but for now, we're going to use our support email here, contact@webcafe.com. We're actually going to change this public-facing name to backend-is real, because it's real. It exists. I know there's not a lot of content around it, but it is real. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Once we do that, we have our 2 sign-in processes. Obviously, if you want to add more providers here. Let's go ahead and do the next step. Next step here, go to Google Cloud. This is going to be part of where we do our function logic. For now, just go to Google Cloud. You can get free credits, $300. For now, I'm going to say no. Select your project, select your organization. For me, it's going to be actual backend app. Now, from here, it wants you to set up a foundation, which you can do, and maybe I'll do a video on that. That's not really relevant for what I need to do right now, though. I'm going to hit this navigation menu. I'm going to go to API and services. So far, so good. We have a couple of different options here, but what you'll notice is we need to go to credentials. And what you'll notice in credentials is that we have a couple of things that we just created here together. I might have to blur this out, so if I do, I do. Only reason I say that's because it requires editing. I don't like editing. And no, just because I say I don't like editing videos, please don't spam my email saying you would edit my videos, okay? Okay, so for all this information though, save this in a separate tab here. Once you're here, let's go and proceed to the next step. As a side note as well, this is actually a very relevant page when dealing with external APIs through Google's ecosystem, e.g. trying to get Google Calendar's API. If you plan on using that in the software, extremely relevant. I mean, obviously the API keys is probably where you'll create it. I may do some other videos on this in the future. Keep that in mind. Well, for that all set up here though, we need to actually initialize our functions. Go to build. We're gonna do functions. Okay, perfect. Now, in order for us to do functions, we need to upgrade to Blaze, but don't worry, this is pay as you go. You got all those credits for $300. This is all free upgrade project. Okay, so it looks like I have to actually put this information in. So let me do that. I backed up a step there because it wasn't in the correct organization. Right now, my organization is webcafeai.com. We'll just do main billing. Continue. What cafe fuel, card details. I'm gonna put this information in. Now, if all that connected here, let's go ahead and actually enable that $300. So I don't have to pay. Start free. Oh, okay. Well, make sure that you do that before you put your billing in. Coming back over to Firebase, I'm going to hit reload now that we've added our billing account here. We're going to choose main billing. Budget amount, we'll just say 50. This is basically giving me a notification of like, hey, something's happening. Something's not good. You're about to go over your billing budget. Hit continue. Then we're going to hit link cloud billing account. And we have officially gone to the Blaze plan. We're blazing. Same situation as hosting. Make sure you install Firebase tools, which you already did if you watched the previous episode. And then we're going to deploy it. Specifically, we're going to be deploying functions today. All right, get branch. Make sure we're in the right branch here. Okay, everything looks good. Firebase in it. Scroll down here. We're going to choose functions. Enter. Now, what's really cool in this series is that I'm going to show you how to do this in Python and in JavaScript. For this specific function, though, which is going to be an on-create auth. This is specific to authentication. Right now, the documentation around a Python function in this context is no good. So just for this function in our application, we're going to be doing JavaScript. But this also gives you the ability to understand how it works in Java. Java. Hit enter. Do you want to use ESLint to catch probable bugs and enforce styles? No. Or maybe for y'all say yes. For me, I don't like that. Do you want to install the dependencies? Yes. The reason I say for the ESLint thing is like sometimes you get really dumb errors that aren't actually errors. And it's like too strict. But that might be good. You can use AI to help you out if you need help there. We're installing. You'll notice that this is going to show up right above here in functions. Amazing. We have officially installed functions in our Node.js project. Let's go ahead and proceed here. And because of the fact that we will only be using one function in the context of Node.js, we'll proceed in the index.js to create this function. Now that we've installed that, let's go ahead and get the front end going here, provide this code, and then the last step we'll do here is create the backend function that's going to initialize everything. And actually, before we do that, let's go and initialize Firestore as well, so we can really put a bow on this and have it so when a new user is created, we have a global doc of users, then a specific UID, unique identifier, and then the relevant docs associated with that. If that didn't make sense, don't worry, we'll jump into it. Therefore, coming over to build here, we're going to go ahead and do Firestore database. Let's create a database. We're going to do database ID as default. Choose your location. If you're in the USA, go with NAM5. This is going to be basically the best performance. Hit next. We're going to go ahead and start in test mode here, but in theory, when we launch to prod, we'll go to production mode and we'll have more security around the rules. Certain files, certain paths, certain ways. Basically, one user's information shouldn't be able to access another user's information. For now, we're going to create. Perfect. With this created here, let's begin. Coming back over to Cursor AI, let's create a new file. This file is going to be Google auth.js. In Google auth.js, if we come back to our Google Cloud here, or actually, we might not need to do that. Let's go to project or go to authentication here. Actually, what I was about to show you, you can't do. So right now, the secret, you need to actually copy through that Google Cloud that I showed you earlier. So go to your Google Cloud. This will make more sense. We're going to go to credentials here. And then in credentials, this was automatically created from earlier. Here's the two variables we need to copy over. This will be blurred out, but we're going to be copying over the client ID and the client secret. So this right here and this right here. To make our lives easy, let's go ahead and use Cursor AI again. Cursor. We want to just import our Google Cloud client ID and Google Cloud client secret in the file. Paste over. This is going to be blurred out, but all we need to do now, y'all, is we're going to hit Command L again, and we're going to simply create the env version of this. We're going to add the file of Firebase or .env. .env. Therefore, we're going to say for the client ID and secret, let's import from env. Enter. Perfect. Go ahead and paste that code over to your .env, and then you can reference it here as so. So far, so good. Give a little bit more context of the client ID and the client secret. This is the way we authenticate the authentication process in the sense of like, do you actually own the app? Do you actually own the Google Cloud processing? Like, are you the owner? This is how we access it. This is how we tell Google that, hey, this is the correct app. We have access. We're good to go. Therefore, coming back over here, we're going to set up our auth, or at least import our auth and everything required for auth. Command L, include Google Auth as well. Okay, we have Firebase authentication started. We need to import Firebase auth and export. We are looking to use email passwordless sign-in and Google sign-in. Hit enter. And if you couldn't tell, this entire series is on the free Cursor AI platform. This is all free. This code isn't bad, but it's trying to do the actual logic of what a sign-in and sign-out is and stuff like that. We just want to export it, so we're going to do this logic elsewhere. Therefore, I'm going to say don't want to do the actual logic. We just need to import and export all of this so I can reference in a separate file. Enter. There we go. So with this code here, we're going to just copy this line and then paste this line right here. So what we're doing here is first off, let me get rid of all these comments. We don't need comments. All right, so we are getting the ability to get auth, Google Auth provider, sign in with link to email. Nice. This is coming from the auth of Firebase. Coming down here, we see that we are doing it here. So auth is get auth of app. Google provider is new Google provider, and then we're exporting this so we can use this in alternative logic, as you'll see here pretty soon. There we go. So with all this information here, let's go ahead and just change something about my front end. So it says sign in. We'll do a separate page, and we're gonna have to do some React navigation, which will make more sense here. But for now, we are good on the auth and the imports. All right, to do so, let me come back over here. I'm gonna say sign up. There we go. Give me a couple of seconds. I'll come back in 5-10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just create a real quick React front end for the sign up UI. If you're like, Corbin, I want to see that. I want to see how you do the front end. Watch my other playlist. It's like 3 hours and 11 minutes long. That's for the front end. This is for the back end. So I've gone ahead and created our sign in UI. So simply click a button here and we're good to go. Either put your email there or sign in with Google. And what you'll notice is that it actually works right now, or at least in the emulator side. E.g., in the next couple minutes, I'm going to show you how to launch the Firebase emulator, which is a mock backend, localhost 4000. And this allows us to see a bunch of different stuff when it comes to later logic we'll be doing together. What you'll notice is that add new account, auto-generate information, sign in with Google, and we're at the dashboard. Let's get going. As I mentioned before, all of this is going to be available on GitHub for you to copy and paste. As of now, though, I'm going to walk you through the chats that I had with Cursor AI, so you can get a fundamental understanding of how this all works and how it all connects. First thing you want to do before we even jump into that is make sure that env, I accidentally created it within the source file here. Go ahead and drag it out so it is on the surface level of this entire project repository. I was running into issues where none of this data was being read, and I was like, what's going on here? Realized that I didn't create it here. So make sure you do that. You'll know whether it's in your source file or not if you close your source file and you see it there. Second thing I realized is that logic I referenced earlier in this video, which was setting up the functions and Firestore to actually save a doc associated with each user, I'm actually going to do that in the next lesson because I got into the point where we have done full-blown authentication. Therefore, if you want to see that logic, check out the next lesson where I'm going to show you how to create a doc when a user signs up, and that's going to pair with the function logic that we'll set up with the Node.js. For now, though, let's just do authentication. First off, the files we created. We already have Firebase.js. We know this. We already have Google Auth. We know this. Unauth, make a sign-in page. Go ahead and proceed. Now, when it comes to good software development, you'll make a sign up and a sign in page. Those will be directed to 2 different URLs, sign up, sign in, obviously. What you need to know, though, is functionally when it comes to code, whether the user signs up with that Google button or signs in with that Google button, it's the same code. Same thing with the email passwordless sign in. Therefore, purely just to show you how to do auth, I'm going to do this all as one page here, but you can easily do separate. Coming into auth, just to show you what it will look like and what does the auth experience feel like, I just real quickly made a dashboard.js and .css to confirm that we are in the auth version, and all it says right now is welcome to dashboard. Don't worry, I'm going to show you all the chats of how we got to this point, so don't feel overwhelmed. I'm just trying to give you like a overview of this, like an umbrella. When it comes to authentication, the major thing you need to understand is how we render the application. Therefore, when we render the app, which occurs here, we need to have paths that are available for unauthed users, such as sign up and dashboard, or not dashboard, homepage. And then we need to have auth paths that are only available for users that are currently logged in, such as /dashboard, which what you will identify is a private route. First thing you may be asking is, Corbin, how do we know whether a user is actually authed or not? That's why we're going to be creating a separate file here called auth.context or authcontext.js. The only purpose this file serves is to confirm whether or not the user is logged in. We then use this context, import it into our app.js to then do this logic. What you'll notice is that the entire thing is wrapped in auth provider, which comes from our auth context. Basically, the purpose of auth context is like, are you logged in? No? Then you can't access dashboard, etc. Okay, with that all out of the way, before we jump into the code, you need to install 2 things. The first line, make sure you install Firebase, so no issues incur there. npm install Firebase. The second one is going to be the browser router. Notice that comes from React Router DOM. Therefore, we need to do npm install React Router DOM. A lot of the times when you get error codes, you'll be able to ask Cursor AI like what's going on, and it will tell you this anyways. But keep in mind, anything you import, you need to make sure you install with npm. Like another example of this is link, which is still from the same dependency, which is React Router DOM. But keep this in mind as, for example, for a lot of the UI I've done on the front end, I've installed Font Awesome. If you don't know what that is, really cool way to get free icons for your software. For now, though, kind of understand what you need to install to do the logic you're about to see. Also, for anyone wondering what link even means and how that's used, what that does is that if it's like I'm on the homepage, I want to go to /sign up, I click this, notice it's not a reload, rather it's just a redirect. E.g. like there is no loading, it just goes directly to it. It's very fast component loading. All right, that's a brief overview. I know this sounds confusing, so let's walk through this step by step and how you can do it in Cursor AI. Hit Command-L, Control-L. I'm gonna explain the best I can. I'm gonna walk you through step by step my thought process when creating this. Let's go and proceed. First, prompt I did. Now, what you need to understand is the files to add to these chats so you get the best answers. Add firebase.json, add your homepage.js, firebase.js, authcontext.js, signup.js. You might be like, Corbin, I don't have an authcontext.js to add. Well, guess what? Go ahead and create one then. And yeah, just to create one, new file, type in a name, .js. You successfully created a JS file. The first piece of logic I wanted just to touch up on real quick is to make it so that the CTA buttons actually worked. So for this example, this was like the let's get started. I want to make sure it worked because before it just like you hit sign up and it went to a different part of the page. To do so, I wanted to use link because I'm well aware of what link means in this context. Okay, we need it so that the unauth people, also when I say unauth, that means that they're not logged in, can go to sign up and sign in page. Also make it so the button does the link to sign up. Basically, I click it, it has the sign up in the URL. Make it so the navigation exists and also set up the relevant port code for the emulator in firebase.json. You might be like, what the heck did you just say, Corbin? Basically, for us to run the emulator like you saw earlier, this is the sign up, we need to actually reference the ports. This is going to allow us to run this backend locally on our machine. And what you'll notice is that we'll get our emulators here. We'll get our auth, port 9099, functions, port 5001. Don't worry. Put in the same exact logic here, reference the firebase.json, and then reference that you want to basically have an emulator for auth, functions, Firestore, hosting, PubSub, etc. You'll see this in the UI when we run the emulator later on. Next, we need to have it so when we run our auth, it actually shows an emulation like you saw earlier when I hit sign up with Google, and we're able to put in our information. Therefore, in our firebase.js, notice how it's adding this line of code right here, right above my head, connect auth emulator. It gives us a line right here. So typically the way it seems like Cursor AI gives its outputs is it doesn't give the entire file. You can obviously request the entire file here, but what you will typically do in this context up to this point is you'll simply like copy this import line because it's all for auth and then paste it here. And then for this line right here, we need it so that when we're in the .env, it realizes that we're in the development and we're connecting to localhost 9099, connect auth emulator. This gives us the ability to make fake email accounts and a fake backend, which will make more sense later on. Also, one major fundamental thing for you to understand is that when you import here, sign in link to email, you export there. So we can use that throughout our other logic. Once we have all that information connected in the sense of being able to have the correct ports associated with our emulator, Corbin, why is it 9099? Why is it localhost 3000? These are just ports associated for the local machine. What you need to understand is this is going to be the meta prompt. This is a prompt you want to use for initially creating the relevant code for authentication. So open up a new Cursor AI chat here. We're going to do app.js, firebase.js, firebase.json, auth.context, the one you created. It could be empty. It's all good. Signup.js, how we're signing up. You know, if you really don't know what to add, it's better to add more than less. But the idea here is add any relevant piece of information that has to do with auth, package.json, just everything, right? From here, put in this command. Now, of course, you can look at my repository for free in the description down below to check out how I did my code if you want to copy and paste it. So here's how we do it. And just for reference, when you write out these prompts, it doesn't have to be perfect English or perfect grammar at all. You'll notice that it's kind of jumbled, but the AI gets it. Create new files. Signup.css, signup.js. Make a simple sign-in page for now. Add the functionality of email passwordless sign-in and Google sign-in with redirect. Have it so I can enter an email and hit next and hit the button to sign up for Google. Import here app.js. Therefore, we need to create a new file .authcontext.js so we can tell navigation-wise whether we are authed or not. And let's go to dashboard, therefore dashboard.js, dashboard.css if logged in. That might sound jumbled, but the idea here is simple. Within our app, I'm gonna hit enter here. While that is generating, let me explain. We need to set up this private route. And what we know is that with auth context, which the AI is smart enough to understand what that even means, we know that we can tell whether a user is authed or not, or logged in or not. So what this will start doing, and the way you know whether your code is structured correctly, is that you should have 3 fundamental parts. First one should be private route. This is going to tell us whether or not the component dashboard.js is authed or not, logged in or not. Once we do that, make sure you import all the relevant areas of your application. The home page, the sign up page, the dashboard. Those are being imported from here, right? So we got the home page, we got the sign in page, and then the auth, we have the dashboard. Naming wise, notice how it says export default dashboard, which means that here is dashboard. And then the file path is /auth, which is the folder name, /dashboard, which is the file name. So from that code output you see here, just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, which gets us to the point that we see here. So right now we have the ability to render the /dashboard only if we're logged in. So let's walk through this little sandwich here. Auth provider, router, routes. What are routes? Routes are going to be the / on the actual domain. / represents just the URL itself. So it's apples.com. It'd be apples.com, apples.com/signup. That's going to be the component of the signup page. And then obviously within the private route, this is what we can see once a user is authed. So let's go ahead and launch our emulator here. To ensure that you can launch an emulator, you're going to come down to firebase.json. You should see some new code here like this. If you don't, simply go to Cursor AI and be like, hey, I need to do Firebase emulator. And then it'll give you all this code. Open up a new terminal window, put in your CD actual backend app is me, and then we just do Firebase emulator start. Now, if you want to make sure we're running this to the right project and the right directory, first do Firebase project list. This is for people that may have created multiple Firebase projects, so let's make sure we're running it on the right application. And I guess I spelled that wrong. Oh, it needs an S. Once we do that, notice how the current project ID we're using is the correct one, actual backend app. If it's not the correct one, simply copy the one you want to do and do Firebase use the application name, actual backend app, whatever your name is. The reason I bring this up is that sometimes you'll run into errors that make no sense entirely. There is a possibility you need to rerun that command line there for Firebase to actually realize that you're using the correct app, etc. Just little glitches here and there. So do that before you do Firebase emulator start, which is this command line right here. You will run this every single time you want to launch your sudo backend. Click. Once you successfully run, you'll get this kind of end message here. And this is where we can see all the backend logs for a local environment. In order for us to see this, simply go to localhost 4000. You go to overview here, you'll see every single one that's on. And how do you turn one on? As you saw earlier, we are referencing these port numbers found here that we showed in the firebase.json. So coming over to the authentication tab right now, no one's authed. No one's signed in yet. So let's walk through this code together. First off, you'll notice running in emulator mode. That means that we are currently in the correct area. Let's get started. Let me walk you through this code here for sign in. As I said earlier, the logic for signing in or signing up with an email, whether it's Google or email, passwordless, if I can speak, same exact logic. So first thing you'll notice is that we're importing all of this information here from Firebase. This is where we set up all our logic here for giving us the ability to actually do something. So once we can actually do something, coming back over to sign up here, we're going to import it because then we're going to use it. So scrolling down here, let's understand what is going on. So obviously in our return statement, we have the enter email, which you'll see in the UI here. And then we have the sign in with Google. So once they enter in the email here, if they choose to go this route, they're going to do the button of sign in with email. And then obviously coming down here, we have the sign in with Google, which is going to do the handle Google sign in. So let's do Google first. Google's easier. Command F, coming up here, handle Google sign in. Now, what's great with AI is that you don't have to understand everything to a T. You just have to understand logically what's occurring here. So what you'll notice is that we are referencing auth that we imported up here in our Firebase, and we're referencing Google provider, which we imported here as well. Now, you have 2 ways of signing up with Google or signing in with Google. It's either sign in with redirect or sign in with pop-up. Now, what I've noticed is with code outputs is that for some reason, it likes putting in sign in with pop-up, which obviously means that if I click sign in with Google, it's going to give me a pop-up. I'd encourage against this just because some browsers have security measures where pop-ups are blocked. So I would opt for sign in with redirect, which means that when I click sign in like this, we're redirected to this page. So watch this. Add new account, auto-generate information, sign in with Google. We're in the dashboard. We're good to go. And then coming over here, if I reload this page, we will see it right here. We have successfully authed using Google. You'll see the provider here as well. Now, let's say we want to do the same thing with email. All we need to do is obviously send link to email. If you come up here, we are doing all the email logic here when doing passwordless sign in. That is why there is no password here. So we'll just do apples@gmail.com. And as I said before, let's say someone put a BS email there. If you do password, you enable password, it will go through the system and you'll get dead records. You don't want that. So do passwordless sign up. Therefore, if a user does this and the email is not real, they're not going to be able to click that link. Therefore, they're not going to be able to actually create an account. E.g., it doesn't exist yet. There is no apples@gmail.com because it's passwordless sign in. Therefore, once the user does have an account, though, in our emulator here, what you'll notice is that we can go ahead and test it. So this would be the email sent in the user's email, whatever they put in. There would be an email sent with the link. When testing it in Firebase emulator, we actually just copy it from our terminal. So copy the link, paste it up there, hit enter, and we're logged in. Apples@gmail.com has been identified as a real email. Now that that is all done, I encourage you to check out my front-end playlist. If none of this like React components kind of stuff made sense, I go way more in depth about importing pages and understanding what every component even means. But as a brief overview of what we covered right now, here's the TLDR. App.js is where everything in your application will be rendered. In app.js, we have two options. First option, what will show users that are not logged in? Second option, what will show users that are logged in? To identify whether or not a user is logged in, we use authcontext.js. Then we take authcontext.js and we import it to app.js. Here is where we set up the logic of private route. With the logic of private route, we're able to basically put in relevant components that will only show and display to users that are /dashboard. And then we'll do other pages as well. But for now, that is all we have. That's the structuring of an auth application. Coming over to firebase.js, anything we need for auth, we import to firebase.js and we export out of firebase.js. Here is where we're going to import and export other stuff, functions, storage, Firestore, etc. Your sign-in page, I would encourage you to do two separate types, sign up, sign in. But all you need to know fundamentally is the actual logic to sign in and sign up are the same. What do you mean by that, Corbin? I mean that the sign in with redirect, that's used for a sign in or a sign up. The code's smart enough to know whether it's a first-time user or a second-time user or a login user. And then finally, the dashboard.js was purely just to show you an auth logged in view. I know that's probably a lot, but now you know the fundamental logic associated with auth. Use Cursor AI to help you out. Actually, one last thing, extremely important, fundamentally important. Don't forget about that firebase.json and actually putting in the ports here. If you don't do that, nothing's going to work. That covers authentication. And in the next video here, I'm going to go over authentication. And specifically, when a user is created, we're going to be able to create a specific UID so we can associate all further data with that user in any context. Sound good? I'll see you in the next video. We can log in now. Log in. Google. Email. Those are two random videos. That's my face. I'll see you in the next video.